Hey, this is the Revolution. This is a storytelling channel. Um, so I decided to just tell the stories about growing up and different things like that. But I'm an author, the writer of 4 screenplays, 3 books, an award-winning poet. First, I want to give a shout out to Michael Franzese because I be listening to his stories and I've been inspired by him to tell some of my stories of growing up in Chicago and different things like that. So I wanted to share this one particular story with you guys. This is a storytelling channel, and make sure you subscribe or press that like button. Um, so lately here, I've been thinking about, you have those memories when you were a child and moments, and you try to project yourself back to those moments of what it really felt like. My mom My mom used to set up a flea market, sell merchandise and things like that. It was her baby. She used to love doing that. She was always an entrepreneur doing things. And I can remember uh, one particular time, because these vendors, they speak to each other about other events going on. If you do an event and you set up, somebody might come to you and say, hey, you may want to try this. You may want to try this. So somebody told my mom that she needs to go try this flea market. We're in Chicago. It was a flea market in Indiana. So my mother, she was like, oh, I'm gonna go, I'm gonna go, I'm gonna go. She was excited, and so me, my brother and sister, and I couldn't have been no more than maybe 6 at the time. You know what I'm saying? Which means probably the oldest. My sister was probably 8 or something like that. So all three of it was 3 of us. So it was my mom and 3 of us, and we drove to Indiana. And if I'm not mistaken, it probably took us. We drove at night, so I was kind of asleep. But I do remember when we got to the flea market, it was all of these cars out there waiting to get in this flea market, uh, but they were sleeping in their cars. So we parked. We slept in the car for a couple of hours. We probably got there like maybe 4 in the morning, and then until they opened the doors, and we went in. Now I'm 6 years old, and my mom had a lot of personality. She'd be like, she'd speak to everybody. She loved to conversate. And my mom, she was a black woman. She was a talker. She wasn't ashamed. Nothing like that. Now, I didn't notice this at first, but me and my brother talked about this, and he kind of reminded me that when everybody woke up to going to the market, how my mom was like, oh, wake up everybody, she's just talking out fun, and how people just ignoring her or whatever. She was trying to be friendly. We had never been there before. She was trying to be friendly and things like that. So she paid for her booth space or whatever, and this is where I started to recognize something was wrong. But I didn't know what it was at 6. But I think about it now as a grown man, how there was no other black people there, and how everything was standoffish. Nobody spoke to us. None of that stuff. And they the way they set the booth, when she paid for her booth space, they set the booth like she was at the end. She wasn't in between individuals. They didn't sit her next to nobody. I mean, it was somebody on the right side of us, but we was at the end of the row. You know what I'm saying? But of course, now when I think about that, I know that was strategic. And then there was a concession stand, like maybe like diagonal from us or whatever. Now, it was interesting, but I remember it. Um, we set up, and it's three of us, so we kind of running around or whatever, not really understanding the gravity of the situation, not knowing our lives are really in danger. But one thing that I can tell you is that the entire day, my mother didn't make 1 cent. Not one person stopped at her table. Not one person was friendly to us. And even when me, my brother and sister were, running around being kids or whatever, the people over at the concession stand, and I distinctly remember this, was looking at us like we stink or whatever it was. You know what I'm saying? Now I do have a specific memory of that, and I just remember when it was time to go. Um, Understanding it now as a grown man, I just remember such a bad mood my mother was in, and you know what I'm saying, and she was just really snappy, and she just really was not herself, because obviously she understood what was going on. But the reason why I'm telling you this story is this. Um, I think about that moment now as a man who wanted to protect his mom. My mom is no longer here, but I do think about that, and I asked my brother about it. Do he remember? And he remembers it. First time we ever talked about it. And I just, and this dude don't remember nothing, but he remembered that. And I think the thing that bothers me is that I'm trying to imagine being in my mom's shoes and her having 3 kids and being in such a hostile moment of trying to make money to feed her family. But what really bothers me now, as I think about it, is that everybody who walked through that flea market and all the other vendors that was there, the people at the concession stand, they all decided together that they wasn't going to like these particular people, which was us. How is that possible? You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody decided that. The people that came into the free market, it's like they knew not to buy anything, not to stop at our table. You know what I'm saying? Everybody was on the same page. And that is why it is so difficult for black people, because there's a unified, I always say this: let there be one voice of reason in any situation. And when I think about that moment, there was nobody who went against the grain to be kind. But and I'm sure it was kind people there. But the point I'm making is that nobody wants to be the first one to do it, and nobody wants to be outcasted, and looked at as wrong because they were the voice of reason, or because they was the first one to walk up to the black table and buy something, or be nice and be friendly or whatever. And that was just one of those moments that I've never have forgotten about. And that was my first real introduction to race. You know what I'm saying? In that moment. And I can tell you right now, in that moment, I didn't understand what was going on. But it was so intense, I never forgot it. And, at the end of the day, it makes me want to reach back as a man to that moment and protect my mom. You know what I'm saying? And, and protect our energy. Protect us. From the memory I have, we were in danger. In that flea market, we were in danger, You know what I'm saying? And the only thing that probably saved us is the fact that my mom was with her kids, and so um, which is probably one of the reasons why she made us all. We all went anyway. But had this woman not came with her kids, it's no telling what would have happened with my mom at that point. You know what I'm saying? But she's with three young kids, trying to, sell the so instead of somebody saying anything negative to us or being physically hostile with us, the whole day we were ignored and everybody understood to be on the same page. Now I don't know what part of Indiana this was, but I do remember it was in Indiana. And I remember we drove maybe an hour or two to get there. And again, that's how we would eat with the money my mother made at the flea market. So not only did she pay for her booth space, but they took her money, and she paid for gas to get there. She didn't make any money, not because she didn't have good product to sell, or not because because she had already been doing the flea market for many years, but she didn't make money simply because of the color of her skin. And I just wanted to share that story with you guys. I'm going to be telling more stories of interesting experiences. This is a storytelling channel. Black Books for Us is the name of the storytelling channel. BlackBooksForUs.com is the website. I'm an author. Check out my books at any time you want. But I definitely want to say Michael Franzese has inspired me to just tell stories, because I watch some of his stories and I really get into them. I'm not even going to lie, because I acknowledge that he really be feeling the things that he's saying. He really, as he's telling the stories, he's reliving the story, and I can feel that. So shout out to him for inspiring me, to tell stories. I could talk about books all day and storytelling, but the best example I can give you is to tell stories. I'm D Revolution. Please like and subscribe to my page. Peace.